Hey, welcome to Carsonian Beans. Today I've got a pretty weird video set for today. I'm going to be really testing my theory and saying, could the 2020 Buccaneers be kind of like the 2019 Browns? And what I mean is they've got it's not as big as the Browns, but they certainly do have a lot of hype surrounding them going into the season. Rob Gronkowski, they got rid of Jameis Winston, which really I don't think was a good idea. And then they got Tom Brady, and now it's looking pretty well, and their defense is getting there. So people are saying they could possibly make a. I've seen people saying that they could make a Super Bowl run. Sorry if I'm skipping forward too much. And before we start, I'm just gonna go ahead and reiterate that I do think the Buccaneers will be good. I mean, look at the stats; it looks that way. I have I don't know if you can see it, I'm going to focus. A lot of reasons as to why the Buccaneers may be the next Browns. Now, I do think they're going to be good. This is not at all what I think is going to happen. This is what I think could happen. You have to understand that. Alright? Alright. First thing I have, so this is kind of not a very big one. But I went through and I looked, and a big majority of their coaches were actually hired last year. So they did get a year to get into this thing. But now, after a year, and a lot of them are old, so they got experience. But a lot of them, they came in 2019. They had a year, which wasn't very good. And then the next year, they get rid of their starting quarterback. Then they get Tom Brady, and we know that Tom Brady's gonna have almost full control of this team. It's going to be really hard for the coaches. It's going to be something completely different than last year. So I was just kind of wondering, like, they only had a year to work with these players. This isn't a big issue. I just kind of wanted to say it. And also, this is a big one that a lot of people are talking about. Tom Brady, could he show his age and get worse? I mean, a lot of people are saying that he was he was only good because he had Belichick. We're gonna see if that's true. Now, I doubt that'll happen, seeing as he had one of the worst wide receiver tight end cores, last year, and he still made it to the playoffs and put up a good fight against the Titans. So that shows that he's a pretty good quarterback. But also, what if he does show his age? He's the oldest player, and he's still considered one of the best. Not to mention he's being thrown in with a lot of players that he is not used to playing with. At least he's got Gronk back, which we'll talk about in a second. Speaking of Gronk, he obviously didn't expect to come back. I mean, he got a job at Fox. He was working on, I look like I have a bowl cut. My goodness. He had a job with Fox. He obviously did not expect, nor probably didn't want to come back. It was probably just, he saw Tom. He probably had some problems with the team. I don't know. And also, for all we know, he didn't keep in shape. For all we know, he was like, oh, finally I'm out of football. I don't have to work out anymore. Let me just lay back and watch a lot of TV. And with all the stuff going on, he's gone from retiring to with a whole nother team. Not to mention, I mean, he's older, so if he doesn't come back, he might play way worse than he did a few years back with a whole new team, and especially he doesn't get to know them very well because of the pandemic. All right, and also if they're going to be relying heavily on Tom Brady because their running back core isn't the best, unless like Ronald Jones steps up and takes this running back core to the next level. They're going to be really relying on it. Now, I'm not saying their running back core is bad. They've got an okay running back core. It's just the fact that if Tom Brady plays very badly, like he could, I don't think he will, but there's a very big possibility that he could play pretty badly. Then they're going to be really relying heavily on their running back core, which at the moment doesn't look like it can carry a team. So this is going to be something that's kind of, it's like the Browns last year. They had Odell Beckham and Landry. They have Mike Evans and Chris Jones. So I mean, I'm just saying, Those are two good. They're gonna be probably fighting a lot for receptions with this guy. So, I mean, at least they got that going for them. And also, their defense, in my opinion, it's solid, but it's not really good. So again, if Tom Brady doesn't do as well, and Ronald Jones, the running back, isn't able to hold this team up, they're going to be relying a lot on their defense, which I don't think can hold. I think it's good enough to support this team and keep them going. It's definitely a solid defense. It's not bad, but it's not great either. So they're definitely. It's going to be really. They're going to be kind of relying on their offense. So a lot of this pressure is being put on Tom Brady, which is another reason why he could potentially do pretty bad. On to the next page. Also, Tom Brady doesn't do bad. Excuse me. I'm thirsty. I said it in disappointment. If they have to bench him, like normally, if a quarterback's doing bad, you'd bench him, right? They've got Blaine Gabbert playing behind him. He's not very good either. So I doubt they will bench Tom Brady for Blaine Gabbert. But if they do, it's going to be catastrophic. I mean, Blaine Gabbert is nowhere near good enough to start a team. So I'm just thinking they're probably gonna have to stick with Tom Brady at least for this year, unless they do some trading or something to get another quarterback. Which they could pull it off. They could get another quarterback. Yeah. Also, you gotta look at the fact that they have a pretty tough division. Mainly, you look at the Saints. This is gonna be. I mean, they're gonna have to, even at their best right now, they're gonna have to really try really freaking hard to beat the Saints, because the Saints are definitely at the moment the best team in that division. Also, the Panthers, they have the right weapons. They could potentially, the Panthers could do really well, and the Falcons, they could also do. This whole division is, I mean, the Panthers could be real. They could be good. They could be bad. So this division is definitely a tough one to be in, especially when you basically got a whole new team just thrown together. Also, you gotta look at their schedule. I mean, they're playing teams like the Saints. They're playing the Broncos, who could do really well. And I mean, if they're doing bad, they've only got like 1 or 2 games against like the Giants and someone else that they could beat if they're doing bad. So if they're like mediocre, that's not good enough. They've got a very tough schedule going into the season. And also, just kind of saying something that could, if all this happens, if Tom Brady doesn't play very well and Rob Gronkowski doesn't catch very well, which could very well, those two things could, I mean, if Tom Brady doesn't throw very well, he shows his age, and Rob Gronkowski's stats are obviously going to dip. And if Rob Gronkowski shows the fact that he hasn't played in 2 years, that could also make Tom Brady's stats dip, as he's going to want to throw to him. And their Ronald Jones and everything don't step up, and their offense is just a dumpster fire, and then their defense can't hold them up, and this whole team goes down maybe to mediocre, and then they have a tough schedule, and they're falling down to like 4-12 at the end of the season, 5-11, something like that. They're gonna be in a rebuild. That is how bad this could be. They could go from really hyped up to a rebuild, which it's not very fun. Of course, the last thing on my list is to reassure you that I do not think, I'm sure like one of these things is going to happen. I mean, obviously they already have a tough schedule. But I do think that they will probably make the playoffs. I do think that maybe they could definitely win a few playoff games depending on who they play. I'm just saying this is what could happen. So, what do you think? Do you think that I'm, being stupid? Do you think that, there's no possible way that the Buccaneers could beat the Browns? Do you think that I'm wrong and no one in the entire world is hyping up? Tell me what you think about this video. Follow my Twitter. Support me on Patreon. I don't know why you support me on Patreon, but please do it. I'm considering starting a podcast. If you support me on Patreon, that would help me buy a mic. I only have $160 right now in my. So it'd be really hard for me to buy stuff. And plus, you see this room, I'm going to try to decorate stuff back there. So, I mean, obviously, support me on Patreon. That could make the background look 50 times better. It could stop me from having to lay down. I could buy a desk, which I'm already probably gonna do. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. Yeah, let me know what you think. And you better subscribe. Don't forget to subscribe. Hit it right now. Hit it right now. Yeah. Road to 100 subs. Let's go.